Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Welcome, everyone, to Aggressive Negotiations, a Star Wars podcast, and one that just does things slightly differently than your average Star Wars podcast. I am one of the Jedi Masters here, Matthew Rushing, and I am so excited to be joined, as always, by the incomparable Jedi Master, John Mills.
Thank you, Matthew. I'm breaking my meditation out here in the fields of Onderon to come to you to talk about today's topic. And I'm so happy, as always, to be delving into things with you.
Before we dove into the topic, and before I asked you that question that always kicks us off,
Yes.
I had something that I wanted to mention to our listeners because this impacts them greatly. And we've decided that we wanted to give back to the listeners who have given back to us. And so we wanted to do a little contest. And we wanted to basically make a swap. You give us some reviews on iTunes, and you get entered to win some amazing Funko Smuggler's Bounty box goodies that are exclusive to that box. I don't know. I think that sounds like a fair trade. What do you say?
I'd say that collectors like exclusives, Matthew, and if there is any large contingent of collectors anywhere in the sci-fi universe, they are Star Wars collectors for sure. So I think that definitely appeals.
Well, this is true. So you will be getting an exclusive Funko Pop hat. That's right. You can actually wear it on your head. It's a wonderful baseball cap. You'll also be getting one of the exclusive Funko Pop mugs that are coming in this month's Smuggler's Bounty Smuggler's Box. It's actually smuggler related. And so both of those things will be coming to you. We're going to be doing this review contest for the next month. So just make sure all you need to do to enter is, one, to be in the United States, and two, make sure you go to iTunes and hit us up with a star rating and review. Now, we need that written review, or we wouldn't be able to know who to be able to send the goodies to. So
That's true. That's true. As much as we love the star reviews, to know who you are, we need to be able to read the reviews. And as an added bonus to the Funko exclusives, you'll get an exclusive picture not available anywhere else, hand-drawn by one of the Jedi Masters and sent to you.
That's right, and we're not going to tell you which one, but it's
Nope.
going to be exciting when you get it. So I can't wait to see what we come up with artistically, John, and I can't wait to see what reviews we get. And we're not asking you to give us any specific type of review. We're not saying it needs to be 5 stars. No, just give us your honest review written up there on iTunes. Just take a couple minutes, and we'll make sure that you're entered into that drawing. And we can't wait to give this stuff away. We just wanted to say thank you for all the people who have already reviewed, and anybody who wanted to add to that, and just show our love and appreciation for the listeners, because, guys, without you, I mean, this show is just not as exciting.
That's very, very true. So we do look forward to getting your reviews and sharing with you these exclusives.
So, John, the question that has been percolating in the back of my mind here in my meditation chamber at the Jedi Temple, it's this idea, we've talked a lot about the show, especially when we were starting the show, because we were coming off the high of the fandom of Episode 7 and The Force Awakens. And, the mantra that we got there was really real sets, practical effects, and a backhanded slap to the prequels in many ways.
Yes.
And something's happened, though, as we've been moving closer to Rogue One, that I'm really excited about. And what's happening is I'm seeing Star Wars made whole again. Star Wars is coming together, and everybody, I think, might know what I'm talking about, is that they brought a character from the Clone Wars series into Rogue One live action now. And so I just wanted to ask you first, what do you think about this idea of kind of melding all of it together to make it all one cohesive whole? TV, film together, and really legitimizing the prequel time period by saying these characters matter. Prequel characters matter.
Yes, they do. I'm thrilled naturally as a fan. I hope to high heaven that what they do is they make it so that non-fans are tickled by the character they're bringing in and say, well, I want to learn more about him and go back and learn more. And by that, sort of open the flower that is prequel era, fiction, and especially the Clone Wars TV series and the prequels themselves, and, appreciate them. I do think it's interesting that they've done this pivot, specifically because I think that with episode 7, there was this sense that this self-imposed sense of they had to quote unquote rehab Star Wars with the common fan. They had to,
I would have just told them that they tried to make me go to rehab. I said, no.
Oh, yes. Well, it got under both of our skin. It really did. I won't lie, it got under my skin too. So much so that when they released the sizzle reel with the special effects for the Oscars, both of us were mocking it, saying, "Oh no! I thought they really built Starkiller Base." That sort of thing. Or
Wait,
I
that
thought they
wasn't
really...
a Star Destroyer in the desert? I don't understand, John.
Exactly. I mean, you got to commit if you're going to have real sets. But yeah, there has been a pivot now with Rogue One, and it's really interesting because this is the big gamble for them if you think about it, because this is, if they're going to tie in and legitimize the prequel era and the Clone Wars show in specific, they're basically declaring that these middle of the road movies, Rogue One is basically their chance to try to convert the people they won back with episode 7 to the entire catalog. And so for that sake in and of itself, I applaud it. I think it's risky. I'm going to be really interested to see how it gets pulled off, if it gets pulled off, when Rogue One comes out.
Well, and I think that's what's so interesting is that apparently, the background of this, bringing Saw, better off Saw, is this whole idea that George had in his mind. He wanted to use this character in his live-action TV series. The one we heard so much about. It's 50 scripts on the shelf. We're just waiting for the technology to catch up. Never got to be used, but once he got into the Clone Wars, he started to appropriate some of those characters and bring them in and use them in that area. And so he used this character of Saw Gerrera in the Onderon arc, where we really dive into, I would say, the kernel that becomes the seed that will one day transform into the fire, which is the rebellion.
Yes. Now, the one thing, just in case anybody is unaware, because, if you're an everyday fan that hasn't really kept up, Saw Gerrera in the Rogue One trailer is Forrest Whitaker. When you see Forrest Whitaker, that's who he's playing. And that's why it was such a big reveal for fans to find out that he was playing not just a battle-hardened veteran who's giving, I'm guessing, our main character a bit of advice about surviving war and keeping your identity, but the fact that he was revealed to be this character who is, to the wide fan base that they won back with episode 7, an obscure mention. When they said Saw Gerrera, Matt and I said, oh my gosh, it's Saw Gerrera. But there are plenty of people who are saying, who?
And we were jumping up and down on our couches. It was very Tom Cruise.
It was. My fingers have not recuperated from that death grip you gave them.
Oh, what was so incredible in that moment was just seeing the fact that, and this is what I love about Gareth Edwards. We're not here to talk a lot about Rogue One, really, or him. We're going to talk about Saw, but I just want to give him so much credit. He's a guy who his favorite movie is Star Wars. He loves the original Star Wars movie, and yet he's still making a film which pays homage to that and legitimizes the prequel era and the Clone Wars characters by saying, story group, we need a character like this, and why don't we use one we already have instead of just creating one lock, stock, and barrel? I think that's fantastic, and it speaks wonders for what you can do because, that era specifically created so many great characters and so many amazing story points that need to be followed up on somewhere, whether it's comics or, books or more animation or in film. And so this is what was so exciting to us is like the super geeky fans.
Yeah.
And what we're excited about is, people are going to see Rogue One and be like, that Saw Gerrera guy, that dude was badass. He was awesome. I want to know more about him. Well, guess what? We've got more to tell you.
Well, you know what, though? I want to ask you this question is why is it simply the fact of what it represents bringing Saw Gerrera in? Could they have achieved this feeling of fan fuzziness with you by bringing anybody in to Rogue One? Or is there some special reason Saw resonates with you? Is there some special reason why bringing Saw into this movie is such a significant move?
Actually, there is, and it was because when that series came out during the Clone Wars era, they mentioned that this was really, and I said it earlier, this was really the kernel, the seed of the rebellion. This is what planted that small little spark that would get fanned into a flame that would become what we know of as the rebellion. It started here. And to me, that was something that was so incredible. And to have that now actually realized that a character from this arc who has such a pivotal role in that arc with, his sister and, Lux Von Terry and Ahsoka and Obi-Wan and Anakin, all of these characters together creating what we know is going to be the thing that's going to be the downfall of the Empire in that. So bringing Saw into me, it's not just any character. He's a direct connection to that link of Anakin and specifically Ahsoka really fanning this idea of rebels fighting for themselves to bring freedom to their own planet, not just having the Republic or the Separatists come in, but people that would fight their own war. And that leads to what we know in the rebellion. I think that's just really cool because it shows the connection of ideas in the Star Wars galaxy, and to me, it just makes it almost feel more real. Does that make sense at all?
Yeah, it does. Real in the sense that it gives weight to the other works that came before.
Right.
And I think that it cements the universe. Clone Wars is now no longer. Basically, they can call it official story all that they want to, but bringing this character and bringing them from the cartoon into reality, you cannot dismiss the cartoon anymore. You have to accept it as one of, for lack of a better term, one of the sacred texts that informs Star Wars at this point forward. You can't pretend it doesn't exist. And that is one of the things that actually makes me a little nervous about this introduction is we're all stoked for Rogue One. I think Rogue One, I'm on record. I sound like a broken record when I say this right now, but I think that regardless of whether the movie's any good or bad, from the shots that we've seen, it looks gorgeous. Like it is a beautifully framed movie from everything that I've seen up to this point. From the first trailer to the sizzle reel, I'm looking at it and saying this looks like Star Wars universe, but not directed by Lucas. Like the two things are coexisting, which is an exciting thing to behold, to know that they can maintain that.
It kind of looks like Apocalypse Now, which Lucas let go so he could direct Star Wars.
Well, Apocalypse Now was let go because it boy, the history of that movie's really interesting. Woof.
That was the simplified version, but
yeah. Oh no, that's definitely the fast forward version. But I love like Apocalypse Now. I love that you made the reference because this is a lot like Apocalypse Now in the sense that you have this daredevil small team mission, on the brink of insanity, what they're trying to achieve, and it's just so it does speak to that, and the locations do look very, very evocative of this sort of guerrilla warfare mentality that they have. But if Rogue One is not particularly good, which is still a possibility, if Rogue One flops, if people don't tune into it, I see, and I want you to check my thinking on this. I want to know if you agree or not. If Rogue One comes out and people don't like it, if people say this isn't good or this is just mediocre, do you think that it damages the cause of including characters? Because if this movie is successful and including Saw Gerrera is a success, then we see the opportunity for more characters brought in to other works that we want to see, thereby legitimizing more stuff. Do you see, if this movie doesn't find its footing, that we lose our opportunity to further validate other things that we've enjoyed, perhaps even a shot at seeing Ahsoka in a future film?
I think this is going to actually change the game for Star Wars. That it is going to open it up. And what's going to be interesting is I think I am more willing to accept this as Star Wars because I've already seen this kind of thing happen in the Clone Wars and seen it work, where Star Wars isn't just the 1 through 7 now. It's not just 1 through 6. Clone Wars really showed me how you can have it be a Star Wars story, but it's not fitting into that mold, it's not cookie cutter. You can do all sorts of different things with Star Wars. You can make it a little bit more comedy. You can make it a little bit more of a war story. You can make it a little bit more of a noir mystery. You can do all of these things. You can make it be a monster movie. Heck, the Zillow Beast. So you can do all of these things with Star Wars under the banner, and if you do it just right, it still feels like Star Wars somehow.
Okay.
And I think what I'm seeing from Rogue One and all is that's what I'm seeing, is that same vein that Dave Filoni is able to capture every week on Rebels for the most part, and they did on the Clone Wars, and of course George did with everything else that he did with Star Wars. So yes, it could hurt that, but I don't think that's going to do that. What I think it's going to do, I think it's going to blow the door wide open to show how to make it be Star Wars, but not the cookie cutter of the episodes.
Right. That it's okay to have a movie that's not a Skywalker story, or even focused on the Jedi, because so far as we know, there's no Jedi in this.
Well, the only Jedi that we know of, I say then quotes, is the ex-Jedi of Anakin Skywalker, Darth Vader, who we do know is going to show up in the film. So,
Which, if you go to the common fan, you're like, well, technically, there's a Jedi in it. One of two things is going to happen. They're going to give you a furrowed brow and walk away, or they are going to punch you in the throat and take your punch money.
So what's so great about it is, too, honestly, and we've talked about this a lot, but I mean, if you watch, I think, all of the Star Wars films, each of them has their own feeling, And so that's what I'm really excited about, because, bringing in a character like Saw, who has such an interesting arc in the Onderon series in the Clone Wars. I mean, I can't imagine watching Rogue One and not being like, I want to know more about this guy. And you go back and watch that arc, and it's really interesting because, the way they're describing him for this film is that he leads a much more extreme group of rebels.
Right.
And I can see those seeds in that arc of that guy who's strong-headed, who's willing to cross the boundary lines.
He believes more in using force as opposed to subtlety to winning his battles. And I wonder, in a way, are we going to is his group going to possibly be made up of people who, he's fought with since then? I mean, not everybody, obviously, but there are people old enough that we've seen in the trailers to have been fighting with him since this Clone Wars arc. Is it possible we're going to see other people with Clone Wars names where we're going to go, oh my gosh, that was the person standing 2 people to the left of Ahsoka in that shot? That sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, are we going to see more Onderondian?
Right.
Will Lux Von Terry show up just as a cameo kind of thing?
Onderondian? Onderonian sounds too much like macaroni.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It sounds
Yeah.
like a pasta that I would have with a nice balsamic vinaigrette
Yeah.
and some cheese on
See,
top.
and that's see, that gets back to my whole why do they call them the Naboo? And I think that's because Naboobian sounds funny, but you know.
It just sounds like you said booby and sneezed at the beginning. So,
And
Nabooby.
and I want people to admit that just listen to this exchange. You giggled. We know you giggled. So, own up to it. Okay, so let's presume Rogue One is a hit, and we have momentum now to start tying things in. Oddball question here. I don't even know if this would be possible, but wouldn't it be neat when Rogue One comes out on home video? And boy, is that an artifact, not saying DVD or streaming, but home video.
Release.
Yes, home release. When it comes out, wouldn't it be great? And I doubt they can because of rights, but wouldn't it be great if they could package it up with the Onderon arc as a bonus to say, hey,
Yeah.
you like this movie? Here it is. I mean, I think that there's a golden opportunity here. Unfortunately, I don't know what the licensing rights are. That's because that's
true.
all mixed up because of Warner versus versus Disney and all of that stuff. So who knows how that split. But another bit I want to ask you about in specific is that it's now known, even though he did not visit the set of Episode 7 that we know of, that George Lucas did visit the set of Rogue One and met with Gareth Edwards and actually looked at some of the footage and stuff like that. Does that give this movie, because and I'm gonna state this. I want to make it 100% clear that I'm stating this as best I can so that it doesn't come off as some sort of insult, because it is not intended as such. But one of the things that I think, speaking as your friend, you had a little bit of a hurdle with Episode 7 was the distancing, not just from the prequels and other materials, but George Lucas himself. There was very much a keeping
definitely.
George Lucas at arm's length feel to everything. And, the old man can't be trusted with his own creation sort of feel came across very clearly, loud and clear to a lot of us. But he visited this set, meaning that relations have warmed up again between him and Disney, or he just can't stay away sort of thing.
Yeah.
Does knowing that give you, because like you said, it took you time to warm up to Rogue One as a concept, whether it could succeed or not. Does knowing that make you more receptive to the movie as a whole as well, knowing that he was on set and that he didn't storm off and say, you're ruining my creation, but was like, hey, pretty good job, guys. Which for George Lucas, he might as well have just like given you $1 million home and given your cat a massage. Like if he just says it's pretty good,
Yeah, it's pretty good. I like it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're right, and you do have something there that the thought that Lucas was able to visit the set, and Gareth Edwards, in his interview talked about this at Celebration. It was either in Celebration or the Star Wars show that they do on YouTube.
Yeah.
And he just said he was so giddy and he was having trouble containing himself and didn't even know what to say. He's like, I was showing George Lucas Star Wars that George Lucas has never seen before.
Right.
But the fact that one, George liked it, and two, they apparently, had some kind of conversations. I can't imagine that, you might not ask him something like, hey, we've got this character and, what was your thought process behind creating him? That kind of stuff, so it can seep into the movie. And what it shows to me is that Gareth said this a few times in Celebration, and he said, without George Lucas, none of this exists. And so I think, to me, Gareth has such a respect for Lucas and who he is. He wants to create Star Wars that makes you feel like George Lucas created it, in the same way I feel like Dave Filoni creates Star Wars. He wants you to make it feel like it came from George, but it's also Star Wars that flows through somebody else as well. And it's just like they're all in tune with the same force. And to me, that's what makes me feel so good about Rogue One in this film, and just the addition of a character like Saw Gerrera.
Now, we'll never know this until after the fact if the movie is as successful as we're all hoping. But there was big hubbub made about the reshoots, and learning that George Lucas visited the set and saw some footage and may have given some feedback. I'm personally of the opinion that it's possible that some of the tweaks that they made were suggestions from him having to do with the characters. Because even people who beat up on Lucas for the prequels are willing to admit that, like, they will even say, yeah, he's a great idea guy at the very least, right? You and I, we both say, well, he's great in execution too, but everybody agrees with that. Do you think that Lucas may have had any sort of hand? Now, granted, Disney would never admit to this until well after the fact, but do you think that Lucas had any hand in what might have been rewritten or reshot in terms of feedback? And would that make you feel, because people got a little defensive, people got a little aggressive, people got a little this, people got a little that, about learning about the reshoots and sort of blowing it out of proportion on both ends? But does it make you feel better about the reshoots, the possibility that George Lucas was one of the ones giving notes?
To me, yeah. The thought that Lucas could have seen something, or because, what we heard in the end officially about the reshoots is that, look, they're always planned, because that's what we do in films these days. We always have reshoots planned. And if Lucas had any notes whatsoever about small character beats or something like that to add to enrich specifically characters like Saw, yes, that is very exciting to me. The fact that he could have had any say whatsoever, could just given them a pointer to move it in a direction that was a little bit closer to what he had envisioned. I think that's fantastic. I love that idea. And again, I think it speaks to this idea that Gareth has utmost respect for the creator of Star Wars and wants it to be in line with something that Lucas would approve of, and would say, yeah, run with that. I like that. Do that. Like he would tell Dave when they were doing the Clone Wars, and
right.
And yeah, I like that. So,
okay, no, cool. I mean, I think we're both pretty much in agreement there, and I think that the overarching thing, while we've been talking about the movie as a whole, the whole thing that is the linchpin is going to be Forrest Whitaker's performance. And at the time we're recording this, people who were not at Celebration Europe have not seen the second trailer. But based on what little you have seen in that first trailer where he speaks, do you think that Forrest Whitaker will finally be, sort of like a last question here, like, will that be the final thing that could push it over the edge? Do you think that Forrest Whitaker could wind up being the fanboy's dream of selling this character well enough that it cinches it? Like, I'm almost of the opinion, basically what I'm saying is I'm almost of the opinion that this all comes down to his performance. Do you agree with me? Or do you think that regardless of his performance, if the movie's good and happy and successful, people go back to the source material?
I think just from the little bit that we got from the trailer, it's so titillating, just a little bit he says, when he's talking about what will you do if they catch you? What will you do if they break you? And it's the last line from the first trailer is, what will you become? And it's just so fantastic because I already know that Saul has gone through that at least once. He's been captured. He's been tortured. They've tried to break him. He's been through that. The question of what will you become? Saw, in some ways, was probably made who he is, probably a little bit harder, a little bit more violent because of those experiences of being tortured and captured and seeing what happens in war and becoming hardened to it maybe a little bit. And so I think all of that just creates a fascinating character. And already what I've seen is that Forrest Whitaker is bringing that to life in just the few lines that he has. And I think that's a compelling character. So for me, in my brain, I can tie the two together already. If you've not seen it, I do think that if this character is done right, which it already looks like it has been, then this is going to be something that's going to grab people and be like, I really would love to know more and to see more of these characters. And I think that's just wonderful because they already have more out there. You know, you're not going to have to wait for a book to come out or anything like that. You can just go to Netflix and pull up the Clone Wars, season 4, and it's right there.
Season 5.
Season 5, excuse me. Season 5 right there at the beginning. All 4 episodes, and I think it's just going to be a beautiful thing. I think Netflix is going to have a run on Clone Wars once
I certainly
the movie
hope
comes
so.
out.
I certainly hope so. And I think that also it's great that the way that all of these stories were done in a self-contained fashion lends itself to, you don't have to watch the way most shows are constructed now. You don't have to go watch all of season 5. You can literally just go back and watch season 5, episodes 2, 3, 4, and 5, and walk away. And you're Saul Gerrera going into Rogue One. So we heartily encourage, I think we both heartily encourage everybody to go in and do that watching.
I would totally do. And what's going to be so neat about it is that, just thinking about, the things that we got out of Celebration, John, this last week when we were recording, they had Celebration Europe 2016, and some amazing, incredible things that they're doing just on the Star Wars Rebels side. With different characters. I mean, we're talking about bringing Thrawn into canon for the first time ever.
Second time, but yeah, it's a trend now.
Well, okay.
Those books, you know what? That's a whole other show.
G-level can't officially written into the Star Wars canon can never be taken out now. Nobody can write over it. It's going to be there. That kind of stuff. We're seeing how the animation and what we're going to get in books and what we're getting in film is important. And they're taking it seriously for the most part, I'd say. And I think that's what's exciting. And they're saying that if you invest in the animation, it's going to pay off for you. If you invest in the films, it's going to pay off for you. If you invest in the books, it's going to pay off for you. The comics, I'm not so sure about. That's a different story. We'll talk about that some week.
At some point.
Yes, we will. But I think that's what's great. And so, I heartily encourage, hit that season 5 up, just press play. You will not be disappointed, and you will have readied yourself for, I think, an incredible Star Wars film that, I don't know, I'm going to go on record saying I could like this film a lot more than I liked Episode 7, just from what I'm seeing now. And my journey going from
I know.
to going, oh, this could be like the I Ching.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing what all of our reactions are. But you know what else I look forward to? You know what else I look forward to? I look forward to listeners of this show, listeners of this Nerd Party Network, going on over to lootcrate.com/nerdparty and entering the code NERDPARTY to sign up for their discounted subscription to Loot Crate. I think that would be a great way to prepare for Rogue One as well.
Because you're going to be getting some exclusives once that starts to roll around.
From
Loot Crate.
Yeah.
You're going to have a Star Wars box come out. And you're going to want to get all the cool stuff, and you're going to want to show it to us. You're going to want to go to Facebook at facebook.com/the Nerd Party and show us what you got. You're going to want to go to Twitter at Join Nerd Party or at The Jedi Masters to show us what you got. You're going to want to email us at an@thenerdparty to show us what you've got. And in fact, there's just so many ways that you can show us what you've got by supporting the network here.
Yes.
By going to Loot Crate and getting yourself some great loot.
It is ridiculous, the great stuff, the treasure trove of wonder. Even Hondo himself would love signing up for Loot Crate. But you've given everybody the official channels to reach out. Where can people find you on the internet?
Oh gosh, you can find me all over the place on my Twitter at MattRushing02. I'm also on Instagram at mrushing. I'll post some things over there, so you might want to check that out. I'm on a network called Trek FM, and I do a few shows there. I do Literary Treks with Bruce and Dan, and we talk about the books and the comics of Star Trek. A lot of times we also get a chance to interview the authors about their latest works. It's a blast. You can also find me doing The Orb with Chris Jones, where we talk exclusively about Deep Space Nine. And I do the General Geek Show over there, which really kind of led to us doing this show. So you're going to want to check it out because we talk about all sorts of things over there, John, whether it's Star Wars, latest movies. In fact, we just kind of did a wonderful, almost tribute show to our love of Superman over there together, which I really think everybody needs to check out.
I completely agree with you, Matt. And if they want to find me crawling around on the internet, I'm Kessel Junkie. Twitter is mainly where I hang out, but just look for Kessel Junkie. It's like shining the bat signal. I'll show up. And you can also find me on the Trek FM network doing a show called Stage 9, exploring the work of the Star Trek creators with Mike Schindler. And you can also find me over on Words with Nerds with my pal Craig, where we talk about a lot of stuff in the geek universe. So, come on over and say hi sometime.
Yes, you should, John. And I think there's only one thing left to say. It's time to close negotiations.
Matthew, negotiations are closed.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.